Thank you, Ron. Really appreciate you having me here again. I think it was good. It's been a while, so glad to be back. So I also wanted to thank all the previous speakers. Covered pretty much everything that's related to GenAI. And as we're seeing, there's so much stuff happening. It's really hard to keep track of all the new LLMs and all the new capabilities that AWS, Microsoft, and everyone else is kind of enabling. So Impetus is a large organization. We've been here. So I want to talk about briefly first what we have been doing. Not sure how many of you heard about us, but we have been we incorporated in US in 1996 and primarily have 20 plus Fortune 100 customers now. It's been like 25 years, so about close to 4,000 employees, and it's been growing year on year. And we have like multiple locations around the world, both here in US and overseas in both offshore locations as well as in Europe now and Australia. So looking forward to many areas to kind of grow into. And we also kind of been awarded many different awards. So in fact, I also wanted to thank Ron for kind of giving an opportunity to talk about what he had done in the previous podcast. So this is actually my second time here. So really appreciate all the support from the team as well. So I'm actually having to do this on two laptops because my one laptop has an audio issue. So I hope I'll be switching between both. So you'll see me swiveling here and there. But I
Hey,
lead the
Dr.
data science.
Ravi, one
Yeah.
suggestion. We can see your smiling face, but if you want to just turn your camera off so you're not going back and
Okay.
forth, we know you're presenting
Okay.
live. That might make it easier for you.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you. I'll be back on video after we're done. Sure. Thank you. Okay, thank you. So the impetus data science practice is something I lead here, and there's a lot of work we do with regard to generative AI. And of course, we've been doing this for many years with AI ML. But what we are helping customers and many of our partners also do is kind of grow their readiness and maturity level with generative AI. And this kind of builds on our expertise in machine learning as well. But with generative AI, it's a different kind of capability that a lot of our customers have to kind of execute. And partly this is the way the whole data and overall contextual, a meaning that needs to be generated from that data. So as part of that, we have 5 steps that we kind of work with the customers to embrace. One is a Gen AI strategy and architecture, kind of setting up the whole platform and enabling them to kind of plan that out. So that leads us into establishing GenAI Foundation, where we can help our customers with our engineering products and services, which includes creating a whole platform to unify their data and bring kind of a sense to kind of all the data that's under the enterprise under different business units. And that's the biggest challenge because a lot of duplicates in the data. How do you tackle all of that? Because the more high quality data you have for the LLMs, the better they perform, as we saw from the previous speakers. And also the responsible AI component is very critical, covered very well again in the previous uh, you know um, talks. Primarily enabling us to detect bias, toxicity, and all of those things are important, so where we can help our customers. And the next step is kind of enabling contextualization. How do you kind of bring the applications to kind of derive value from all these different solutions that you're building on top of the unified data platform? And that's where we are adding a lot of things, including being able to kind of make sense of the data. And finally, once you're able to kind of build these applications and on the contextualized data, you can actually scale these out. So that's what the last piece is. And that talks to, I think the talk on the Chris's talk on the LLM ops as well, because a lot of concepts in there apply here as well. And that's something we kind of touch all of those aspects in this one slide. But coming to real the inside, what is under each of those pillar, we actually have many components that we kind of work with our customers on. As part of the GenAI strategy, it's all roadmap creation, infrastructure, and kind of figuring out what needs to be done, how do you prioritize the use cases, and so forth. And a lot of things I'll kind of, in interest of time, maybe I'll just skip over. But if anyone has a question, feel free to reach out. I'm just kind of splashing this here. But there are various pieces under that 5 pillars I talked about, which kind of become very important. And once you're able to kind of do all of these, you're in essentially a place where you can really derive value from the generative AI applications. and that they essentially can start feeding back, and you get a lot more inputs and kind of create new use cases and so forth. Now, coming to work, we have been doing generative AI. And even before AI come out, we were actually doing all these question answer pairs to kind of build our own data sets, and a lot of things that echoed with the previous talks that were covered many of those areas. And we have especially kind of built some solutions internally and also for our customers on text summarization, translation, report generation. A lot of work even at video analytics that we had done. Some of it pre, Chat GPT era, where actually we are looking at various sequence models from deep learning and a lot of things that were built on top of transformer architectures as well. So all of these things, including like the multimodal OCR, which is also covered, and code generation. So we have done this on many, custom GPTs as well as on the cloud providers, services as well. So how do you use all of this for automating generative AI applications? That's what I want to talk about, primarily looking at the concept of document intelligence. As you know, RPA has been around for a while, right? So, and then we kind of got into the IPA, which is intelligent process automation. So we had from ML rule-based automation to machine learning-based automation to deep learning driven automation. And now we are hitting a roadblock in terms of as the data complexity increases, how do you kind of make sure that all of this data is useful and you can automate? Some of these automation tools and techniques are good up to a point, but then if you want to capture all kinds of variations and context that's hidden deep in the data, that's very difficult to do. And is the question then is how is there a better way? And that's where LLMs we see a real good opportunity for kind of helping our customers with enabling automation, primarily driven through GenAI. And this is partly because these two tools essentially will be able to kind of derive context and insights from the unstructured data sets that are really more than 80% of the data in enterprises today. And as part of that, we can look at how do you enable this automation, right? So one key part is ensuring that you have many use cases. So essentially, kind of figure out which use cases across different verticals will be relevant. And document intelligence one that touches many such verticals, and pretty much every vertical has many kinds of documents. And our capability in enabling those customers to derive value from those data sets is what they've been doing even pre Gen AI, and now with Gen AI, that's kind of amplified the whole process. So with regard to specifically with regard to LLMs, there are primary ways to kind of extract this information, because LLMs will work very well, very similar to how humans might look at this data sets and kind of find information, and more better than RPA, in fact. So you would be able to do that partly because the LLMs are looking for information within the language or text that is in the documents, and they may be connected across different documents and they have relationships. So that's what we are trying to kind of utilize, and by integrating all of this to enable application, development, and multimodal LLMs can play a real key role here. Partly because even if you take an example of a shipping customer, you have image documents of the airway bills and a lot of other documents that be the shipment information, where you need to extract a lot of things like address, location, and also various other pieces of things that come in. So there are ways to kind of bring all of this together. Now, how do you kind of automate all of this so that you can actually address tasks that are repetitive for humans? And this is where I think even the next generation of LLMs are going to be driving at, and primarily enabling better performance and kind of creating a way to drive better decision making. All of this is through kind of enabling you to kind of drive information insight generation from data given the context, right? So now I'll talk about briefly about a couple of examples, work we have been doing with some of our customers. And this is one example of how do we use insights generated from emails, right? So emails is one type of documents, and of course, this integrates on top of other kind of documents as well. We kind of use that to kind of look at information to kind of enhance productivity and decision making, and using prompt engineering, as well as now we have also done things with RAG which is like also talked about. So all the email data is chunked, it's vectorized, and you can actually feed that through a vector database into an LLM. And there's also a RAG in between here. But primarily, you're able to kind of drive various downstream use cases and automate some of these. Like, how do you categorize all the different kind of emails? How do you kind of figure out what is in the attachments? You're looking at specifically various kinds of text that may be mentioned, like tasks and so forth. Also, somebody is responding to someone else. There's a lot of tasks that are being, uh, shaped, sent around. So, which means potentially there could be delays, and there's frustration, there's anger, there is happiness. So sentiment is also very important. And of course, in some cases, maybe in kind of banking situations and so forth, there's also potential for suspicious activity, and that is something also of interest. So our approach is kind of looking at all of these and kind of looking at how to automate the process of this analysis. And this is just one piece, but there's other kinds of documents we can also bring to the table in terms of integrating multiple pieces of documents. And all of this can enable us to kind of deliver quick results in terms of the insights that are generated and simplifying the whole process. That would take manual effort. And some of this was done for our customers as well. This is an example of the work we did. Like, we can take an LLM, and give it as an input, and then try to find what's in the attachments, and then the LLM generates an output saying this is the sender, and ultimately the insight is that there is something happening in the email and we need to look at. So that summary came from the LLM. So of course there's human validation and feedback that's incorporated to kind of make sure there is improvement, and also kind of looking at how to automate this whole process for email generation as well, because a lot of times there are tasks that need to be followed up. So customers will really like to kind of see how to improve that process, because it's manual follow up as well. Now, coming to the various enterprise activities and things we are doing, in fact, looking at delivering something like this for a large bank, which was trying to avoid large regulatory fines, primarily looking at suspicious activity at scale. And this was again email data, and looking at kind of various ways to kind of improve and flag those kind of suspicious activities like money laundering or insider trading and things like that. And then again, how to take that same framework and apply it to different kind of documents like contracts, intelligence, and extracting information. So automating all of the whole process is something that falls in this space. Again, other pieces to touch here are again the agents and orchestration and ML ops, which I'm not touching here, but all of those are kind of like the glue that makes this whole thing stick together. Now, there's also another similar example of detecting abnormal activity in this large bank, looking at fraudulent scenarios. And it's very interesting because what happens is, in many cases, customers are not doing fraudulent transactions, but they're being scammed in the sense that there's some customer behavior, odd customer behavior that happens. That people may be calling them to kind of buy gift cards, or they may be kind of asking them to deposit money and so forth. So there is interest in kind of looking at omni-channel data. How do you kind of bring in all the customer interactions prior to that fraud being observed? So to detect fraud, right? So this is in the banking scenario, but similar kind of things even in other verticals has become important. Wherever you have different kind of data and some anomalies are happening. And one more last piece is kind of looking at the ability to kind of bring together LLMs and RAG and also the metadata. And the reason for bringing in the metadata is kind of you have your documents from different business units coming and landing in the data lake or wherever. Now, you have to be able to still tag them and kind of identify when the LLM hits the data store. It can tell that this came from, for example, SharePoint or some other data store. So primarily looking at all of this and making sure that when the customer or the user actually inputs a query, he gets the right data and the right response. Overall, there's a lot of ways these kind of techniques can help us automate the whole process, and where we can apply LLMs. So this is actually a lot of work that we're doing in this space. Now, of course, a lot of things we do with helping our customers. And one example I talked about earlier on was the GenAI readiness and enabling our customers to grow their maturity levels, right? So this is something that we do. And then there's another offering that we have, which is data and AI labs, which is primarily combines a design lab with a build lab. So with the design lab, we could do a quick, study to figure out what is the use case, how can we address it, and what's the reference architecture. and then kind of create a build lab that's a very short engagement, very brief, to kind of deliver a quick proof of value. And that kind of shows you the benefit of doing using LLMs and GenAI in your environment within the scope of what could be done in a short engagement. Ultimately, we also kind of bring together various other pieces to this whole puzzle of applying GenAI. And Impetus GenAI services include like building this data platform to unification for data unification. Also, the LLM, figuring out which LLMs to select and integrate and deploy. Like all the speakers before me talked about, that's a big challenge because there's so many options and the list continues to grow. And ML ops and LLMs ops are very critical to ensuring now we can go from the traditional ML models that are deployed to applications and apps that are deployed, and that's the critical piece because they are the ones that are actually being seen by the end user, and that's where they're actually having a great impact. Ultimately, it's all about building these solutions and for GenAI and helping our customers and their end customers also succeed. So we bring to the table a lot of fluent frameworks and accelerators to help you in this process. So be happy to talk with anyone who's interested, and there's a lot more which we can cover. I wanted to keep it brief at a very high level, but you can reach us at inquiry@impetus.com, and really appreciate your time from all of you. Thank you.